I've said before that dandelion petals are one of my favourite ingredients to work with. I love their bright, sunshiny flavour, and the process of collecting and working with them really makes me happy. So I thought today I'd show you the very first course off my tasting menu at the minute, which is a dandelion petal fruit pastil. It's a really refreshing palate cleansing start to the meal, and it complements the flavours that are in the homemade gin and tonic I serve as my guests arrive. And I think this encapsulates something of the way that I approach food too. There's a minimalism to this dish with just a couple of key flavours, but trying to express them in as clear and vibrant a way as possible. So this dish starts off with collecting dandelion petals to make an infusion. I mentioned in my last year's dandelion video just how much I enjoy this, because for me it's the job that signals we're out of the winter properly and into the spring. On a bright clear day, it's a really enjoyable, life-affirming way to spend time. Finding somewhere quiet and green and being out there collecting the petals. Often my fiancée Eve will come along with me because it's such a nice way to spend the day. So we'll head somewhere nice and pick our dandelions, away from dog walkers and roads. And we'll move around so that we don't take too many flowers from any one area, leaving plenty for the bees. And then once we've collected our flowers, we need to pick out the petals, and then I'll use this to make my dandelion petal infusion. I covered how to do this in detail in last year's dandelion video, so I'll link to that as well as putting the recipe in the description, but we'll just skim over it here. I combine sugar, citric acid, water, lemon zest and lemon juice and bring that to a simmer. Then I let this mix cool, and I add the dandelion petals into that cooled liquid and leave them to infuse at room temperature for 2 days. After this, I can strain that, and then I can either freeze or bottle my infusion. So that gives me my dandelion petal infusion that I'm going to use to make the pastils, but you could also alter this and use another cordial like elderflower or rosehip would both work well. Then I also use a cold infused Osmanthus flower syrup in this recipe. It's simple to make this Osmanthus flower infusion, and I'll give the full recipe in the description, but you just need to combine Osmanthus flowers, sugar and water and leave them to cold infuse overnight. And then we're ready to use that infusion alongside our dandelion in the pastils. I mix 800 grams of the dandelion petal infusion with an equal amount of the Osmanthus flower infusion, and I bring them to a simmer. Once it reaches 100 degrees, I add the sugar and pectin, and I continue to heat it to 107 degrees. Once it hits that, I stir in the tartaric acid. Then I set my pastils in a silicone sphere mould because I have a specific way that I want to serve them, but you could just set it in a tub and then cut these into squares. The finished pastils will store for about a week in the fridge, and just before serving them, I toss them in a mixture of sugar with a little citric acid. They're served on skewers in these beautiful metallic dishes with a fresh lemon verbena leaf on top to give a final blast of fresh sherbety citrus. If you haven't tried fresh lemon verbena, then you must. It's not too hard to grow. I first came across it a long time ago when I was camping in France, and I walked past this bush and was just hit by this like blast of the aroma of sherbet. And when I tasted the leaves, it was like no other herb that I'd tasted before. It's just really unique and beautiful to work with. I also really like infusing lemon verbena into gin, and in fact it's the principal flavour in the vacuum distilled gin that I make. I think I'll do another video soon on how you can make an incredibly simple lemon verbena infused gin, so hit subscribe to make sure that you don't miss that. And I hope you found this interesting and it maybe encourages you to go out and forage some dandelion yourself. You can look at the video I made last year and that gives you some more ideas around this too, and I'm quite often making videos on wild foods as well as different techniques that I use in the kitchen and dishes from my menu. So thanks for watching. It helps me out if you can hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon.